friends, Casey Ashmore coming to you from the studio again. As I have done for the last several months, I am kicking off all these video series with an acknowledgement of the big challenges that are facing our country and our neighbors. The first of which is the unending economic impact of the coronavirus pandemic. And of course, we are hoping and praying that our friends, countries, neighbors around the world can get back to work and provide for their family, because we need some normalcy. And as important is the tragic death of Mr. Floyd and how we are coming together and dealing with as a nation, how we're going to live up to the rhetoric of our revolution, that we are all created equal under God. And I am reminded of the motto of our great nation, out of many, we are one. And that goes along with some hope and prayers for healing so that we can come together as a people and address this in a positive way moving forward. So one of the things that we've been doing this last video series is a deep dive on Texas estate and probate law, and one big resource that the legislature gave us a few years ago to help folks plan how to transfer assets was the Texas deed on death. It was a form that was kind of set out by the legislature in a legislative session. I think it was in 2013. And anyway, the 2019 legislature has repealed that and kind of punted that back to the Texas Supreme Court regarding how those forms need to look to make sure they basically pass and muster. And the bottom line is that it's still an available tool. It's not as perfect a tool as we previously thought it was. However, it is still available. But the great thing about a deed on death, and let's talk about that, is that let's say it's mom and dad's biggest asset, and they want to make sure it passes outside of probate. So during their life, thereby allowing them to keep their homestead exemption as long as they are living in their home, they can create a deed that says, I, dad, leave the house to mom, and should she pass on or predecease me, I leave it to my children. And then you name your heirs, your children. And mom could make the same designation in the same deed on death. And that takes it outside the probate estate. It's not something you have to report to the court, and the deed's already recorded. So there's really nothing to do. Upon the passing of mom and dad, the house becomes the property of the heirs, and it's done. The downside to that is that the legislature's repeal of that form kind of throws that into some bit of question. And as 2020 has unfolded, there'll be more to come on that solution. But the bottom line is the deed on death is still a viable and useful tool to get real property out of the estate and into the hands of your designated heirs in a way that protects your homestead exemption. And if you don't know what that is, touching on it briefly, a homestead exemption is a husband or a wife, just an individual citizens, doesn't have to be married, but their primary home is exempt from creditors, liens, and judgments, except against government-funded medical care, the IRS, or any other state or federal governmental lien. But if you have a credit card debt or a medical debt, they can file a lien, but it's not good against your homestead. So your homestead is sacrosanct in the state of Texas, which this has always been a great place for creditors to move to, and that has always been a big draw. So the deed on death is a vehicle to transfer that big homestead asset to your children. Now, that doesn't mean upon your death they get the tax benefit of, as most people know, the homestead gets a tax freeze when the residents reach age 65. And that doesn't happen on a deed on death. You know, you don't get the benefit of mom and dad or grandma and grandpa's 65-year plus tax freeze. So once that transfer springs into interest, then the county tax assessor is going to do a new appraisal on the property at the current market value and raise that tax rate accordingly. Anyway, that's just a little bit on the deed on death, how it works in Texas, how it protects the homestead exemption, and how it gets the real property out of probate. More to come on what the legislature did with the requirement for new forms, but the bottom line is still a vehicle for transfer of assets outside the probate administration, which is always a great thing because it keeps it out of the court system and puts it in the hands of your heirs. Anyway, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share. Leave me a question or comment, and I'll get back to you in a direct message or video series or both. Thank you again.